Resource Watch is brought to you in association with Tebe Investment Corporation.
Gold's 27% price drop since the start of last year has seen producers under pressure to cut costs. We're speaking to a company that is not only satisfied with its overall performance, but expects its gold output to grow. I'm Nozi Pombandra. Welcome to Resource Watch. Let's look at this week's news headlines in the sector.
BHP Billiton has agreed to a request from its shareholders to take the company created from its proposed demerger to the UK market. BHP announced on August 19th that it would demerge its coal, aluminium, nickel and manganese assets in South Africa, Mozambique and Australia into a company that would trade primarily in Perth and have a secondary inward listing in Johannesburg. Mid-tier producer Aquarius Platinum's planned sale of stakes in a small mine and another project to a Chinese consortium for $37 million has been terminated. The deal failed to get South African regulatory approval. This would have been China's second foray into platinum production in South Africa. Junior South African gold producer Village Main Reef has been approached by other companies looking to acquire it to embark on a strategic review that could lead to the sale of some or all of its assets. The company's share price was over 5% on the announcement.
DRD Gold Limited is a South African gold producer and a specialist in the recovery of the metal from the retreatment of surface tailings. The company is listed on the New York and Johannesburg stock exchanges, and today we're speaking to its CEO, Niel Pretorius. Niel, thanks for making the time to join us. You're coming in on a rather volatile week for equities markets. In particular, yesterday we saw a particular drop. Good news for gold, I'm sure.
Yes, no, when the markets are uncertain, it's usually a good lead indicator for gold. But obviously also depending as to where the banks want to take the sentiment with regards to gold. But it seemed to have been a good day. I saw that we had the highest gold price in a month today.
Absolutely. That is a bit of a short-term view, though. Let's talk about the longer-term view in terms of your particular outlook for the industry and here in South Africa. Where do you see future growth in the coming months?
Well, the gold price internationally is down quite a lot. We saw a drop in the dollar price of gold that was in the 20s, I think. So I think the international gold producers are under enormous pressure. I heard a statistic, which may or may not be accurate, that about a quarter of the world's producers are underwater if the gold price stays at current levels.
Right.
In South Africa, we've been fortunate, although that's also very much a short-term thing because it impacts the buying power of your currency, but we've been fortunate in the sense that there's also been a weakening of the rand. So in South Africa, the drop in gold price has been a single-digit drop. So there's still quite a bit of margin in the South African gold space at this stage. And you could see some of the higher margin companies, like a Sibanye Gold, for example, taking full advantage of that.
Absolutely, and I know that your results are coming out on the 24th, but before we look to this particular set of results, let's take a step back when you made headlines, in particular around the failure of your flotation and grind circuit to be integrated into your broader system. Maybe let's get you first explaining what this piece of mechanization really is, and why is it so integral and important to your operations?
Yes, no, certainly. Look, our business involves the retreatment of gold tailings. We've been very fortunate in the last few years up until about February of last year, where the increase in the gold price brought a whole lot of resources that otherwise would not have been viable into our reserve base, and we could build infrastructure around that and basically build a business model or a plan around that. The fact of the matter is, though, that it was an exceptionally attractive gold price profile that we've seen, or pattern that we've seen. It outpaced costs by a significant margin. We are mining a low-grade resource. It's a high-volume, low-grade story, basically ours. And as a consequence, it's important for us to continuously look towards better technologies to extract more gold from the material that enters our plant. And this is basically a part of that technology. So we started up the plant. It's an addition to the plant that involves the separation of a 4 to 5% concentrate that contains pyrites, and these pyrites encapsulate gold particles that otherwise don't respond to our metallurgical process. And the simple fact of the matter is that although we placed far more gold into solution, we were not able to get the gold out. It didn't settle onto the carbon, which is the component in the metallurgical process, and hence a lot of gold in solution left the plant. So we had to call time out and just see what the real problem was. We were concerned that it may have been a design problem. It turned out to be a metallurgical problem.
Right.
So we're back in a test phase at this stage, just to make sure that things are what they have to be, what they seem to be. And we've had a very strong recovery in the last 6 months. We put out an update a few weeks ago at the end of the quarter, and we saw about a 20% recovery in gold production in the last 6 months. A very nice recovery in revenues, about a 50 million rand
increase in terms of your operating profit,
etc., etc.
So those are all very encouraging numbers, but you're also saying that that particular piece of mechanization, that flotation circuit, is still in test phase. Once that test phase is completed and it's completely up and running, to what extent do you see that influencing the production numbers that you've put out, or your production update that you've put out? It's
more a matter of extending life of mine. This is a countermeasure to address diminishing grades over time. So because we're mining an ore body that over the next 10, 15 years will diminish in gold content, it's important that we extract more of the gold that actually enters the plant. So while there might be short-term increases in gold production, we're targeting about 145 to 150,000 ounce profile per annum. So whilst there might be short-term increases in gold production, we're really targeting a much longer and far more steady production profile, and hence the technology. 1/3 means about, or rather test work means about 1/3 of total plant capacity. It is a large volume environment, so we've basically separated out one particular resource, and we've established a base case, and we're doing test work on that base case just to see whether we are hitting all the operating parameters that this piece of technology is required to achieve.
You've been quoted several times, have been very frank about your expansion plans, and that DRD Gold is keen to expand. Let's talk a little bit about those in terms of where you're headed likely and what's on your radar.
Well, it's very much off the existing platform, and the fact that we had a 6-7 month delay in the commissioning of this technology really means that the model that we can construct to see where we can take our technology has been delayed. So we'd like to see exactly where this technology takes us, how it affects the economies of scale, and especially the volume cost profile and recovery profile that is integral to our operations. And ideally what we would want to do is obviously expand our existing reach. We've got a very extensive footprint here in and around the Johannesburg area, so we would like to extend or expand that reach, the reach of that infrastructure, by bringing in more tailings and treating more of the remaining tailings dams in and around the Johannesburg area, and also see to which extent we can take this technology and transfer it. Because it's such a high volume environment or high volume model, economies of scale are fairly intimidating. You do require a very large concentrated or concentration of old tailings in order for it to work, and large amounts of capital upfront as well, development capital upfront. So I think that the transfer or the construction of something similar somewhere else on another footprint that is probably something a little bit more longer term.
Also in the South African context, there's a lot of jitters around the policy environment. Just recently, Minister Ngwako Ramatlhodi was talking about classifying iron ore as one of these strategic minerals. If you could have a conversation sitting down with him, what would be your key policy concerns as one of the players in the industry?
Look, I think the policies are the policies, and if you want to exploit minerals in a certain jurisdiction, you've got to play by the rules and construct your model accordingly. The single biggest thing that you require, though, is certainty, regulatory certainty. You can't have vagueness or fuzziness around what exactly it is that government requires. Now, what exactly is the expected lifespan of the current mining charter?
Right.
Are we going to look at another change in a year or 2 years from now? Marco Defani at the recent Indaba actually made a very strong point around this. Is if you want to attract money from outside of South Africa, and local money as well, you've got to provide those investors with certainty. You're not going to throw money at an uncertain regulatory environment. So that is the single most important issue, I believe. I don't think we've got bad legislation. I don't think we've got a bad regulatory environment. I don't think it's being enforced or managed or administered worse than anywhere else in mining jurisdiction like Canada or Australia and so forth. There are frustrations. But if you go to international gold conferences or minerals resources conferences,
Right.
then you find that those frustrations exist outside in the world as well. What we do require, though, is regulatory certainty, policy certainty around where we're going to go.
Niel, thank you so much for making the time to join us. Minister Ngwako Ramatlodi, if you are watching, Niel Pretorius is asking for policy certainty. That's the CEO of DRD Gold Limited. There are over 3,000 types of gemstones mined worldwide, most of which come from Africa. This week we're looking at precious or semi-precious stones, and that's our gem of the week.
Gemstones, or crystals, are formed in many environments of the earth. Water interacts with minerals and dissolves them, and these stones form over millions of years. They are then mined, polished, and made into a variety of ornamental items, including jewelry. These stones come from the Mapatiza mine, located in Zambia.
50–60% of a replica, because you can't really make a mine, but it's a replica mine from our amethyst in Kalomo. And they're going into those chambers, and then they hear the story, where we find it, how we find it, how difficult it is, because Mapatiza means hard work, hardship. And in our Mapatiza mine, only ladies work. Mostly 90% ladies, and the men are doing the trucking and with the cars, but the ladies are doing the digging.
Gemstones are classified into different groups, species, and varieties. For example, ruby is the red variety of the species corundum, while any other color of corundum is considered sapphire. Amethyst is prevalent in most places in Zambia, but major production is in the Mapatiza area. Annual production of amethyst is about 700 tons, and it grows in a carpet-like form underground. Crystals have been used for energetic cleansing, balancing, protecting, and healing purposes for thousands of years.
You see, the gemstones, they can be used in jewelry, in decorations, in walls, in floors, in tiling, or you can do carvings or healing purposes, which is very, very good to have a gemstone in the company, in your house, you know, because it is good for the amethyst for drunkenness, the crystal for healing purposes, the black tourmaline to keep the evil away, the rose quartz for love, and so on and so on. There's so many. Fluorite, which everybody knows, is made, it's a beautiful stone, but it is made also in toothpaste. You grind it down in toothpaste.
Whether you use them for decoration, healing, or even swimming, these ancient stones capture the imagination.
That's it for this week's show. Thank you for making the time to join us. Do stay in touch. That's by following me at Nuzi Pumbandwa, and of course using our hashtag ResourceWatch. Until next time, it's goodbye for now.